Hello, everyone. Welcome to the best and worst of Walt Disney World, brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel and DizBoards.com. I am your host, Ryan O'Clavin, and in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the top attractions that aren't actually that bad if you're afraid of heights. If you remember last week, we did the top attractions to avoid if you have a fear of heights, and we used DizBoards.com to come up with that list. And when we were going through and creating that list, we had a bunch of attractions that were listed on that thread that we actually felt like really weren't terrible when it comes to a fear of heights, and we think might be worth giving a try. So to help me have this conversation, we've got Mr. Corey Fiascanaro.
Hey there.
Morgan Lamone.
Hi.
Mr. Craig Williams in the back there.
Hi.
And so there's a bunch on this list, so we're going to kind of go through these a little faster than normal. But again, like I said, we kind of have, I personally have a fear of heights. Not everyone else has that same exact fear of heights, and everyone's fear is perceived differently. But I thought we could just talk about some of these. The first one that came up was Cali River Rapids, which I thought was interesting, and I don't really know that at any point I feel like I'm high up on here. I do know that it has a drop in it, so some people have the fear of the drop. I consider the drop in this more like a slide like Pirates. I find it to be very anticlimactic, and that the way you board the attraction, I'm never, I don't know. I've never in my life would have associated heights with this, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I avoid Cali River Rapids, but not because of a fear of heights. I just don't like the water drop scene, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You can kind of either come out bone dry or you're going to come out soaking wet. Yeah. There's like kind of no in between on that attraction. Yeah. So that's really the thing I would probably avoid when it comes to that. But another one that was on the list that I actually, when I was younger, I did get nervous about this is Peter Pan's Flight. Mm-hmm. Now, this attraction in Fantasyland at Walt Disney World, at Magic Kingdom, well, it is Walt Disney World, but it's... So you're in a pirate ship, usually two. Maybe if you're one adult and two kids, you can get three in a row there. But and the thing is, the track is above you, so you dangle from the track. And when I was a kid, and that's part of the effect because you like see the track disappear when you go to take flight into the darling children's bedroom. Is like. That part for me, I remember being like, whoa, we're flying. Like being nervous because everything's kind of below you on that attraction. And when we got to the London scene, I always felt like when I was a kid, forced perspective really did it for me because I was like I'm 1,000 feet in the air.
Exactly.
Right now. Look at how tiny the little cars are in the street. Like we're so high up, but it's actually like not even that bad. I feel like you could, if the ride ever break down, you could just hop right off.
Yeah.
And it's such an amazing attraction too. Like if you have fear of heights or your kid might have a little bit of fear of heights, I'd say this is one like my family, like I tell the story, urged me on to a log flume ride when I didn't want to go on it. I didn't like that, but I feel like with Peter Pan's Flight, you can urge him on a little bit because it's a must-have experience.
Yeah, it's and also like I guess my advice would be because maybe this would have worked for me is kind of point out as you go through the attraction if you've got, it doesn't even have to be a kid, any person that's afraid of heights, you can point out like, oh, look, if we stopped here, you could literally get off right there, right there, right there, right there. Like, I think seeing the forced perspective scene of London is like one of the best parts of that attraction. And that it reminds me of E.T. at Universal and has that same kind of forced perspective thing. And I actually, as an adult, I love that because it does still remind me of being like, wow, I'm so high up when I'm a kid. And then you'll see how ridiculous your fear kind of was. But another one on the list, which is a family coaster at Magic Kingdom, is the Barnstormer. Yeah. So this one is Barnstormer is a ride that lasts, I feel like, all of 45 seconds.
Maybe less.
It is. I can see where it might have that fear of like falling or something because it does have a rise, like a hill in it, a lift, and but it's very quick and literally it's over so fast. Yeah. And it is one of those where if you stood right there, it's not really that high up. Like if you fell, I don't think, I don't. I also feel like I should put an asterisk here and be like, I'm not an expert on death by falling, so please don't sue us or anything like that. But I think this one is kind of fun and thrilling and might be a good one to start off kids, or even an adult that might be a little nervous in being like, look, see, it's over, it's done. This is like a miniaturized version of these exciting attractions.
It's a great intro coaster. Like, it's even like if you haven't been on Barnstormer, but you've been on Slinky Dog, which I don't know how, but it's possible. Slinky Dog's a step
bigger.
above.
Yeah, I would say
it's
that.
a step above Barnstormer. Yeah.
So we also have Seven Dwarfs Mine Train on here as well. That was in the list on there. And again, this is another one of those attractions where it does have a little bit of a lift, but I feel like you're kind of enclosed for a lot of the attraction because you're in the mine.
And then you're distracted by the characters,
Right.
and then there's shadows on the wall singing like "Hi Ho." Like there's not really.
But then, like, also
lift.
when you fall, not fall, but you know what I mean. When you come down, we go down the hill, you're kind of still, there's rocks that are kind of up on either side of you. So for me, I don't actually ever feel like I'm high up. I feel like I'm hugging the ground the whole time.
I feel like the drops really aren't very big. They make it feel bigger than they actually are with curvatures and stuff. But it's not. You're not actually dropping down very far at all.
Yeah. And another one that's on the list that I also feel the same way with is Big Thunder Mountain.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I remember not going on this as a child because, it's like got this, it's Big Thunder Mountain. And you watch the train cars come swooping around the side where it's like toward the Tom Sawyer area. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's going so fast. And it's most of the ride is not really in fast motion. I feel like there are lifts. There is that lift where you're inside of the cave. And again, I think I struggle less with like enclosed lifts because it's kind of like I can't really see
There's
the
nowhere
height
to fall.
perspective.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And that's like this because in there's a lot of those caverns with like the water, the colored water and stuff like that. And
I feel like that one that you're talking about, when you get up, it's like the most uneventful drop, or at least at Disneyland, like it's the most uneventful drop, and you're like, oh, that's it? Okay, and then you continue on with the rest of the ride. It's like the build-up is for nothing.
Where you emerge from that area too is probably the part where you're the highest up on the attraction, but also I'm like you can only see around you for so little amount of time. And my advice to kind of avoid that on this attraction is sit in the back row. You won't feel the lifts as much.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be as straightforward as possible with it, but if you've ever lived in a place that has hills, that's literally the equivalent of riding on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad because basically at every point in time, you're just in the same height that you would be sitting off your car off the ground.
Yeah.
So if you go up a hill, that's like going up a lift hill. And if you go down a hill, that's like going down a hill on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. And it's literally that. And
like
that's it.
Seconds where the part where you kind of can't see the next part is just seconds. Like it's just it's
And if you were with like a family with kids who haven't done any of the mountains yet, I would probably suggest Big Thunder be like the first mountain that you try out.
You think?
I feel like if you go on Big Thunder and like you're into it, then Space Mountain isn't a far shot from that. And then you could probably also do Splash too. But I think out of the three mountains,
I didn't put Space Mountain on this list. I just realized. I think it was in there. I just might have left it off the thing. But let's talk about Space Mountain here for a second then. I feel like this was one. I avoided so many rides when I was a kid. It is embarrassing. Yeah. But I remember when I was 18, I was here for grad night, and that was when it was still at Magic Kingdom, and everybody I knew, and I went, if we're dying, we're all dying together, So I thought I'll know every single person in this entire vehicle. And the thing with Space Mountain is like it's so dark in there that you will have that feeling of being like I am aware I'm on a track in an attraction, but I don't think you actually have the scope of how far up you are or how far, and that could be terrifying for some people and some things.
Yeah,
But
and then the one drop that you feel, even though it is in the dark, by the time you realize it's happened, it's over.
And
it's so
not
quick.
it's not even a long drop. It's like I think about it just being a Speedy Pirates like hill.
Yeah.
It's
almost.
like
when I was a
over.
kid though, I felt like Space Mountain was like all in a tunnel. And it was like all in a secure tunnel as a kid. But now as an adult, especially after like doing it with the lights on and stuff, you see it and you're like, this is not a safe little tunnel.
Yeah. So I'd say if you've never been graced with the lights in there, just consider yourself. I know some people like it, but
I love it.
I love it too. Like I loved it the Christmas party with where they had the lights. It wasn't full lights on, but just enough lights where you could see it. But that really made me think with it though, like when the lights were on in there for Christmas with them flashing, when you were up at the tallest points of the attraction, you felt like you were high. But then we talked about the one real drop in the ride. It, like, when the lights on for that drop, I was so underwhelmed because in the dark, it feels like you are dropping 30 feet down in one swoop. And with this, it's like 10.
Yeah.
I felt
so it's
the
weird.
same thing. When I saw it with the lights on, I was just like, oh, this isn't the big drop. This isn't the big drop. This isn't that feeling. And then I did it. I'm like, oh, that was it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's over.
The feeling I had, I still remember when I did Big Thunder Mountain for the first time and Space Mountain for the first time that same night. And I remember thinking after Space Mountain, like, oh, wow, I missed out on this. I feel brave. But I also feel like this was a really cool thing that, again, indoor coasters is not super common, I feel like. And so I don't know. There's that, it removes for me, I'm much more likely to do something when it's enclosed, like Hulk at Universal, no thank you. Stuff like that's completely outdoors, no thank you. But indoors, I'm like, I can't see my death, so I'll be fine. Like, but another one that was on this list was the People Mover. And I have actually never had an issue with heights on this one. Yeah. I think because the track is so wide. Yeah. I mean, I get it. You are high up, and some people have that thing. But I think it's because you're only ever high up on one side at a time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like you're never close enough where it is actually like I'm in any way in danger of teetering or falling. And there's no sort of motion on that ride that makes me feel like I'm like, whoa, like when you do the Astro Orbiter, you have that slight lean in it that makes me feel like I'm going to tumble out of it.
Yeah. And if like the People Mover were to break down, you're not worried about it. Like, oh, I'll just sit here, or we'll just get
sidewalk.
Walk on a bridge, go back.
The door that you enter and exit through is always open to like one of those sidewalks, or it's always enclosed by a wall or something like that too.
I would say the second floor of a mall is probably the equivalent of what this feels like when you're on. Actually, I find second floors of a mall to be scarier than the People Mover. I always feel like someone's going to push me over the railing. I do have a big issue. The Mall of Millennia has glass walkways to get from one side to the other, and I remember being like, I'm never going to that side of the mall. Splash Mountain is the next one I have on here. And a lot of these are at Magic Kingdom, but I didn't do Splash Mountain. Was kind of the last one of the bigger rides here that it took me so long to get up to do. Actually, Everest was the very last one, but Splash Mountain, I remember going on it, and when I was a kid, I always thought it was just that drop that you can see, and I feel like I missed out on so much for so many years because that attraction most of it is just you literally in this riverbed that you, like at any point, and they had this for a long time. That's why now they have the lap bars. You could just have gotten out and been like, all right, bye. I live in this town now.
I'm gonna go hang out.
Like I was shocked at how there was literally kind of no height related fear in there, except for the big at the end is the climb up to the laughing place, and it's like not the laughing place,
the Chickpin Hill, is that what it's called, or is that the entire mountain?
Are we talking, sorry, I wasn't paying attention again, are we talking about the final hill?
Yeah,
Chickpin.
Hill.
So that climb, yes, it is a longer climb, a longer hill, but again, you're like enclosed and you can't really see out of the mountain until you're toward the very top. And there is that moment, it does do that thing in my stomach where you're like, ugh. But that's definitely the drop. And that the more I've done it now, the more I'm like, it lasts for maybe 10 seconds, not even 10 seconds. And like, I would say it would be a shame to let that one part stop you from doing the rest of it. Even if you can muster up the courage just to do it one time, I'm telling you that thing will be over and done with before you realize.
And the build up for it, I think the music and then the setting and then where Rabbit's captured, like in the, not the crows, is this crows? In the beginning of the hill?
Vultures.
Vultures, yes. I think that kind of puts you in a scarier mindset then. It's like watching a scary movie and you don't listen to it. Like, it's not as scary anymore. So I think if you do that, and like you said, it was enclosed, so it's over.
For me, that hill is steep. And I've been on Splash Mountain a few times, and when I go on it, I get through it, I go through the hill, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was fun, it was fun. But all the way leading up to that hill, because it is a steep hill. You look down, it is steep.
No,
And I'm just like thinking the whole time through like the water ride part of it. I'm just like, that hill's coming up. That's all I can think about. Brace for the hill. Hold on.
I only brace for how like soaked I'm gonna get on the ride. I try to that's the only thing I get worried about.
Even feel like I get that wet. I'm like, just sit in the back row, I guess, you know. But well, next on our list are two more that are a little more debatable, and one of those is Rockin' Roller Coaster. Okay.
My argument for this is it's in the dark and you don't know which way is up. So there's no point of fear of falling because you're just doing this the whole time.
Well, and so I remember being like, well, I didn't go on this until I moved to Florida. So it was in the last like 10 or 12 years that was the first time I went on it. And it was one of those, when you describe it to me, I'd be like, never in my life. And, you know, it goes upside down. No, I'm not doing this. I can't even remember the first time I did it. But I remember being like, this coaster is so smooth. And all that stuff happens so quickly. Yeah. But also, like, where you board the coaster, you're in a room. You know, you're in this enclosed room. And the entire time, it's kind of so dark in there. Even with the neon lights of the track, I can only see the track and the neon lights. And that might give some people, I know there are people like who have fear of open water and that open spaces that does that to them. But like, so maybe the idea of being in this like endless black room might be a lot for them. But for me, it actually made it much more, I'm like, I don't really know where we are in the air right now. So it's like, yes, the idea of going upside down. Here's my little trick I do with this. So the lap bar goes down. I squeeze it uncomfortably tight. I got to get that one last click in. And then I put my feet on the, I press my feet so hard on the thing in front of me that I think to myself, and then I grip the lap bar so tight that I'm like, if this lap bar fails, I have wedged myself into this seat so intensely right now that I will not fall out of this. Also, your shoulders barely even touch the lap bars. They really only do it for the barrel roll, and that's always the part where I'm like, oh, I felt my left shoulder. No, but I'd say that this is a fun attraction.
Yeah.
And I think the number one complaint about this attraction is how quickly it's over. So like, think about that when you go on it.
And nowadays, I don't go on Rock and Roller Coaster a lot, but it is a special attraction to me. Because I'm not a huge roller coaster person now for numerous reasons, but I really was when I was a teenager. I would go on anything. And like me and my mom would go to other parks outside of Disney and like just experiment with like the most crazy roller coasters that you could not pay me to go on today. But Rock and Roller Coaster was kind of the first thing that made me feel kind of brazy. It made me feel like I could do anything. I just went upside down and I didn't even know I was going to go upside down.
Yeah.
Like, because at that point I had only been on like Space Mountain, Thunder Mountain, like nothing too big of a deal. Then I went on Rock and Roller Coaster for the first time, not knowing that we were going to do a little loop.
Yeah.
And then we did a little loop and I was like, guess what? I just did a loop. I can do anything.
Yeah.
And then from there I became more adventurous.
I think that's what I love too is once you come off of a lot of these types of attractions like this, where like I feel like I say, oh, it wasn't that bad, because it also gives me what you're talking about, that adrenaline where you're like, I am unstoppable. Like, I will be brave. And the last one on this list,
can I say one more thing about Rock and Roll? So I was very fortunate when I was a cast member like 6 years ago to do the backstage tour of Rock and Roller Coaster, and I got to ride it with the lights on and no music.
Never. I will never do that.
That was terrifying because you see where you're going and you feel like it's so far like spread out, but it's like a ball of yarn, the track and everything. So I've done that, so I can do anything. That's how I feel.
You guys with the lights on? No, I'm like pitch black. Give me pitch black. I'm fine. You know, like unless it's a coaster like Hagrid's at Universal Studios. That's like, I'm like, if I fall out, I'll swim through this moat or whatever. But
and this last one I've done with the lights on as well.
No. And the last one, I have this weird feeling toward, but it's Tower of Terror was on this list, and I actually, for me, I was always afraid, like, we never went to Hollywood Studios when I was a kid at MGM back then because my mother had not heard kind things about it. And so, but, ironically enough, that's where I ended up working when I came here. But one of the first things I did when I moved here was the Tower of Terror. My friends were cast members before I even started at Disney. And one day we like went on and I bit my friend's arm. Like I was so scared of the fall that the photo was my teeth into his shoulder.
Oh
and
my gosh.
And I remember being like, I'm not doing this anymore, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward years later, we're at Disneyland and Tower of Terror. We're there that last weekend of Tower of Terror. And I was like, goodbye, devil's attraction. And I love Guardians of the Galaxy. And I was like, oh, I can do this now. Because for me, I learned I have a fear of falling as well as being high up. And so like, it depends where that fear of height lies in, I think, because this one is not necessarily visually high up. Yes, the doors do open and you can kind of see out, but I find that I can't really see out very well depending on where I'm sitting.
And you don't know how far you're falling being enclosed in it all, and I think that helps.
It also
too.
doesn't fall that as fast compared to the one in California, so that's why I'm like, now feel like it's slower, and it actually makes me feel like it's not falling fast enough. So I think to myself, wow, how the mighty have fallen. Boom, nailed it.
Back in either the 90s or early 2000s, there was an advertisement for the Tower of Terror where everybody got into an elevator and they were standing up, and then it started to go up and down. And that's obviously not the attraction, but like we didn't have all this information readily available like we do now. So I look at the advertisement and I say, that's Tower of Terror, and I'm never going on it. And that held up for years and years and years to the point where I still have never gone on Tower of Terror. Haley has, but I'm at a point now where I do kind of get motion sickness and nauseous and headaches and stuff like that with certain motions. So I've yet to come out of my cocoon there and try it now that I know you sit down.
Well, it makes me it does make me feel a certain way still, but
tell me if you guys agree with this. If you were nervous about doing Tower of Terror or Guardians of the Galaxy in California, I think that you should try Guardians of the Galaxy first if you're fortunate to go to Disneyland. And I feel like the theming's a little more fun. The music's
fun, yeah.
And
whereas Tower of Terror is supposed to be like scary. And,
yeah, I think you should, if you're fortunate enough to go to Disneyland, do that first if you're nervous about that ride, and then do Tower of Terror. So
I think that is good advice as well. But well, that will do it for this list. Again, this list was cultivated from a thread on disboards.com, so be sure to check that out. Thank you guys for having this conversation. Thank you everybody out there for listening and watching, and that will do it for this episode of The Best and Worst of Walt Disney World.